Welcome to 284 Media. With me today is Dr. the Honorable Natalio Wheatley, Minister of Agriculture, Sports, Culture, Fisheries, and Youth Development. He has taken office just about 4 months, and since then, a myriad of changes have taken place within the Ministry of Education, and he is here to tell us all about them. Minister, welcome to 284 Media.
Yes, thank you, Ron. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, within a very short time, as we said, 4 months, of course, coming into an already existing system,
Yes.
you and your ministry have seen it fit to make some changes. Briefly tell us about them before we get into it.
Well, we're considering changes, I should say.
Correct, considering.
We have the additional year that recently we did some consultations on. And I have to say, Ron, those consultations have gone very well.
Okay.
We also have, as you know, a different policy as it pertains to scholarships. Scholarships, we're not going to award them to specific students. We're going to have areas that we think are important to the economy, and we'll make scholarships available in those areas, and students interested in those areas will apply specifically for those areas. When it comes to the students who are going to Vanguard, we did make the decision that we are going to continue to support the students who are going to Vanguard because the parents have affirmed that they're getting an excellent education there. And we also have the discussion that we're having about the exit proficiency examinations and aligning the pass mark with the pass mark that they have all year.
Okay.
So those are things that I think would be interesting. I know persons have expressed concerns.
Definitely, there have been a lot of debates.
And I think it rightly concerns. I think this thriving democracy, this is what we have. And out of the debate, I think we get a better product in the end. So I want to let people know I'm responsive to their concerns. I'm listening, and we'll try to see how we can get the best result, through the participation of the public.
Wonderful. Well, let's start with Vanguard. You mentioned that you have decided, so the decision has been made to continue the program. Am I correct?
We're going to continue with those who are already enrolled in the program.
Enrolled, but no more students will be further enrolled.
Yeah, I'll tell you what happened. A lot of them I think all of them were given 4-year commitments.
Okay.
And the 4-year commitments did not allow some of them to graduate. So what we're actually doing is actually extending the 4-year commitment that some of them had all the way until graduation.
Okay.
So regardless of where they are in the system, we're going to make sure that they graduate. In addition to that, what we want to do is, I've spoken to some parents about this, I would like to go on a tour of Vanguard.
Of course.
And I want to learn some of the lessons that Vanguard has to teach and try to see if we could build our own Vanguard down here. Because the problem is we only have about 6 students in there right now. Mm-hmm. And those 6 students in the course of 4 years, and remember I said we're extending it beyond 4 years, but 4 years for 6 students was coming up to $1.56 million, somewhere around there. It's basically a $44,000 per student, and if you multiply that by 6 for 4 years, you get a pretty hefty sum. And we couldn't afford to do that for the amount of children who really needed the services.
Understand.
So we took the decision that we wanted to be able to create a local solution, create our own local
Tell me about
Vanguard.
that local solution.
Well, we have some persons who are interested in studying special needs. And so I am actually allocating some scholarships
in that area.
In that particular area, so we can get some persons trained, because I know really the facilities are important, but what's most important in dealing with special needs children, the human resource.
Okay.
So we want to get some persons trained. And like I said, once I go to Vanguard, I have a lot more ideas. And I know the parents have a lot more ideas about how we can create something that would be more acceptable. Because I know the parents, they're really struggling right now in the system here. We do not have adequate resources for the special needs students here. And that's something that I want to focus on.
That brings me to my follow-up question. We already understand that it's extremely expensive.
Yes.
As is a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
We've seen the results with the students. 1 student graduated, Mr. Kahim alone, and now we see 6 others are there. So we're not sending any more students to Vanguard. We're going to let the ones that are there complete their program.
Yes.
However, in retrospect and in as realistic as we could be, while we hope to implement a lot of the standards by Vanguard locally, time frame wise, how realistic do you think that is in preparation for not only the students who might be of age to continue, But our system, as it stands, just like you mentioned, we're struggling as it pertains to the
Yes,
special needs.
yes.
Realistically, what measures are in place or will be putting in place to make sure that the students are still getting what they need?
I think it's a valid concern. I think the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a step, and the same money that we were, allocating, I would like to see us to equal that and even exceed the amount of money towards the different solutions I'm speaking about. We have to rebuild Eslin Henley, so we have some drawings that are being done right now, and I'm immediately making funds available for training.
Okay.
But I think it's a valid concern that in the interim
Correct.
period, there'll be some persons who will have some difficulties. And I'm going to have some meetings this summer with the persons in the special needs program already, the teachers, to try to see what immediate steps we can take that will be ready for September.
All right.
I can't promise that it will be perfect in September, but I will make some efforts.
Okay. Let's go on to the sixth form, the 12th grade review.
Yes.
Of course, we've held consultations and you've spoken with persons within the the ministry and the community to get their feedback on it.
Yes.
I have a couple questions as it pertains to that. I remember, particularly when the sixth form was implemented, we had the CEO, the present CEO, education officers, as well as the permanent secretary and teachers coming in public in support of the sixth form.
Yes.
All right. They spoke highly of their thoughts towards how it would affect the students. However, in this case where we're now reviewing it, they seem rather quiet. You're the one who I guess is getting the brunt of whether it should be done or it should not be done. From a ministry perspective, when you look at your colleagues and the persons that you work with, do you sense that they are in support or against? Because it seems like they're very quiet as it pertains to where they stand.
Well, I have to admit to you, Ron, from the time that the additional year came up, I wasn't in agreement with it.
Okay.
And some of the very same persons you're speaking about who were in support of it, and other persons, I should say, have persuaded me about the usefulness of an additional year to some of the students.
Okay.
So I'm completely persuaded that the additional year is useful for some students. But I have to say there are persons, and perhaps maybe they haven't been as loud, I'm not sure why they didn't feel freely in speaking even back when it was being implemented. I know some persons spoke out. Some persons are concerned that the students who are more advanced are being held back.
Okay.
In the system. So we put in forward a proposal. The proposal is for the students who are advanced to be able to leave senior school in 2 years as opposed to 3 years. So they'll be on a 2-year track. To be able to qualify for early exit, you would have to have a 3.0 GPA, meaning that you have to show that you're a pretty well-performing student. You have to get the same number of credits, which would be 60 credits to be able to graduate. You'll do 60 credits in 2 years as opposed to doing it in 3 years as it's done now. And of course, you'll have some community service requirements. So you'll have all the same graduation requirements. You'll have to pass the EPE. That's something that we'll review down the road. But as it stands right now, they'll have to satisfy all the graduation requirements in 2 years as opposed to 3 years. One thing we did was take away CAPE. Because which CAPE is Caribbean Advanced Proficiency Examination. Traditionally, CAPE throughout the Caribbean is done in a 2-year college they call sixth form. And that's at the tertiary level already.
What was the motive behind removing CAPE?
Well, we thought we would duplicate an effort somewhat. The college, H. Lavity Stout Community College, has taught CAPE in the past.
Okay.
And I think
Do they still continue to teach it presently?
They more so do A-levels now.
Okay.
But we'll have to have a discussion. A-levels is the English version of CAPE, or I should say CAPE is the Caribbean version of the advanced proficiency, the advanced levels that happen in the UK. And really our system, the CXC system, is really like a Caribbean version of a British system. So right now you can get your A-levels at the college.
Okay.
And I do think that it's better to have 2 years in one institution versus having 1 year of CAPE at Elmo Stout and 1 year of CAPE at the HLSCC. Community College.
Okay.
I think it has, it ensures more continuity, more cohesion, and more coordination in terms of the types of courses that are being offered and the type of teachers and resources available.
In relation to the 12th grade, are there any statistics, pros and cons, whether stuff has worked in the past or has not worked, that you're able to present to us so that the general public themselves can come to their own conclusion? Any statistics, documented analysis as it pertains to the 12th grade?
It's a very good question again, Ron. In response to the consultations I've had, persons have said they want more statistics. So I actually delayed the decision I was going to make. I was supposed to be making a decision
Correct.
this week. I delayed it to get some statistics from the H. Laverty Stout Community College. So that's quantitative data. But I do have a lot of qualitative data.
Okay.
And I'm getting the qualitative data from these same discussions that we're having. And those discussions involve teachers, education officers, and students. I have to tell you that I taught most of the students at the H. Laverty Stout Community College. I teach English, which is a subject all of them have to take.
We have something in common.
Yes. So I'm familiar with the students and their abilities. And to be honest with you, I know that the students need to be strengthened. I know the ones who are strong. I know some of the areas that need to be strengthened. And we're in discussions in terms of how we strengthen them, which is a broader discussion as to whether you just have an additional year or not. It has to do with teaching. It has to do with your curriculum. It has to do with your support services to the students, the performance of the students at home, the level of discipline. Lots of different things go into the discussion about improving the results. And it may be difficult to simply isolate.
Okay.
And I should say as well, we had the storms as well, which may be a variable in some of the statistics we get. It may be difficult to isolate exactly, what impact the additional year had on the students. But we're going to look at their CSEC results. We're going to look at the performance of students from different schools. Let's take St. George's. They don't do an additional year. Let's compare their results with the students at Elmo Stout, Seventh-day Adventist, same thing. So we'll take a look at some data, but we know that data can be manipulated to say whatever it is you want it to say.
I do think in this particular case, it's imperative that we get to see both sides in reference to how it's worked.
Absolutely.
And perhaps if it hasn't.
Absolutely. That's why I delayed the decision. Persons, I think, rightly said we want to see some statistics. So I have requested those statistics from the H. Laverty Stout Community College.
All right. On to the EPE. Yes. It has been announced that it was lowered. All right. And I have to say, I think there was a little bit of surprise when the announcement came.
Yes.
All right. So tell me about exactly why your ministry decided to make that move, and why didn't we hear from you first?
Oh, yeah. Well, let me address that part first. I apologize to the public for the confusion that has caused. I did not know that decision would have been communicated in that manner.
Correct.
I had, from the moment I made the decision, I decided I was going to make a speech to be able to explain the rationale for the decision, because I know if you just, say the decision, it will cause a lot of concerns, which it rightly did.
Of course.
So I would have preferred to be able to have delivered a speech and given the rationale for the decision at the same time. But since becoming minister, I have to say I've gotten lots of letters, lots of calls, lots of messages about the EPE exam. At the time when I was getting the letters and the messages and things like that, I wasn't ready to make a decision on it. I wanted to do some investigations. So I went ahead and I did some investigations, and I discovered some things which were troubling to me, and I think that we have to correct. One thing that I discovered was that we have lots of honor students. Students who, we have students who have 3.4, 3.5 GPA on a 4-point scale who were struggling to pass this exam. I had a meeting with teachers, and teachers expressed a great deal of concerns about how the exam was administered. One of the concerns they did express to teachers, this came from the teachers because I didn't even know what the pass mark was. The teachers told me that the pass mark is inconsistent with the pass mark that they use all year.
Okay.
So I took the decision, after all my investigations, to ensure not simply that the mark was lowered, that it's always in alignment. So the decision was made to raise the pass mark by the previous minister. So the 12th grade was using 50% throughout the year, and then the EPE was 60%. So the EPE went down to 50%. But next year, when the pass mark is 55%, the EPE will be also 55%.
Okay.
And going forward, if we choose to raise the standard again to 60%, the EPE will be 60%. We just want to make sure that we have consistency across the education system. And I do say, through my investigations, I discovered that there's a real gap between the ministry and how teaching and learning is administered in the schools. And that's a gap that I want to bridge.
Okay.
So I am having lots of discussions with the teachers union. I'm having discussions with the principals and the ministry about how we bridge the gap. There was a belief that the teachers should not see the exam and that past exams should not be available. I understand that there's some concerns about teachers teaching to the test. But we also have to have a certain level of trust in our teachers to know that they're going to use the knowledge of the exam to help them improve their teaching, the teaching and learning process. And it wasn't clear to me how this assessment was being used to improve teaching and learning. Students themselves, they didn't have a clue what they were doing wrong on the exams.
Okay.
And I do think it's important, if a student is taking an exam and they're not passing and they don't know why they're not passing, we have to show them specifically, this is what you did wrong, and help them to correct it.
No, don't you think it was or is a little bit odd for the scores, just like you said, not the scores, but the pass mark to be lowered after the exam would have been taken? Would it had not been more prudent, perhaps, and I'm not the expert, so I'm just asking, would it have been more prudent to make this change for the next academic year instead of after the exam has been taken?
Well, the problem with, and I agree with you, this is something that should have been done before. I would say that I got in here in February. I was elected in February.
February
and they took,
25th?
Yeah, and they took the exam in March.
Okay.
So it didn't really give me a lot of time to get, I could say, my feet under me and understand all the issues before making a very important decision like that. So they took the exam in March, and of course we got the results. And so coming in, I would say, in the middle of the process was, I guess, a disadvantage.
Okay.
But I can't allow students who, in my view, have demonstrated through their work for an entire 6 years of secondary school to miss the opportunity of going through a very memorable event. And that's something that potentially could scar them for the rest of their lives. And that's something that I had to weigh.
Okay.
I had students who are honor students and who I know their parents, I know the type of persons they are, and I really don't think that they deserve to go through that type of traumatic experience. And it was a difficult decision because I know some persons would question the integrity of the graduation results.
And the scores. Yeah.
And the scores. But really, it would really question the integrity of the entire system if you had persons making A's and B's who we determined were not fit to leave high school.
Well, what is interesting is that in the remarks, particularly when it came to the high school results, the principal mentioned that 88 of those students out of the 153 were on the honor roll. So that is a prime example of perhaps how the public's perception could be weighed in thinking that, okay, the scores are lowered and now all of a sudden we have 88 persons who are on the honor roll. Were they on the honor roll before? That would be the question.
Oh yeah, the honor roll has nothing to do with the EPE results.
Okay.
And that has absolutely no bearing on your GPA. The EPE is just an exam that you have to take in order to be able to graduate. But the GPA is determined by their performance in their courses. They have to get 60 credits to graduate, and all the courses they take would contribute to that 60%. So that's what I'm saying. If persons are questioning whether these students are really honor students, it brings into question the entire system. It brings into question the teachers. It brings into question the type of assessments they do. in school. And this is why I'm going to conduct a comprehensive education review to ensure that when a student gets an A in a class, that we know that it's really an A.
Okay.
Now, I can tell you through the qualitative data I've gotten, just interacting with the students, we have very strong students in our system. So I don't want anybody to think that I'm questioning the strength of our students. We have students who leave from Elmer Stout and other schools, and they dominate abroad. You know, I went through the system myself. I wasn't the valedictorian or the salutatorian. You know, I was an honor student, yes. And I truly believe that our honor students and our advanced students can go anywhere in the world and compete with any group in the world. We have quite a number of students who need to strengthen skills. You're into reading. I know you have a business where that's your focus. And we know that we have some challenges there.
Absolutely.
In some reading. We have some challenges in math as well. So the areas of the system that we certainly need to strengthen. And I'm hopeful that a comprehensive education review will identify some of the areas where we can improve our basic skills.
Now, Minister, you will have the persons, of course, who will say, with just being in office for 4 months, it seems very political or highly political when these changes come about. What do you say to those concerns?
Well, I understand those concerns.
Or the concerns that we seem to want to kind of undo what was done before. What do you say to those claims?
Well, I don't necessarily see myself as undoing. Like I said, with additional year, I actually discovered that the additional year was something that was useful. So that's not something, you know, I'll have some more consultation with HLSCC, but it's not really my intention to take away the 12th year. So really what I see myself as doing is improving on the system that we already have, which is what the previous minister attempted to do. He wasn't afraid to come and make changes that he thought were improvements. And every minister is going to come in and really want to make some changes. And I should say that these things have been on my mind for a long time because I am an educator. We have these discussions at the college about improving the quality of the education. I was elected. I've given the opportunity to be able to go through the process of improvement, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. So some persons would like to see everything change. Everything won't change. Okay. Some persons would like to see nothing change. Well, that's not going to happen either because I've been elected for a purpose and a reason. And my primary motivation is to improve the education students for the system for the benefit of the students.
Wonderful. Well, Minister, thank you so much for stopping by, and we wish you and your ministry all the very best.
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Get online today with CCT Go Fast LTE. Simply select from any one of our Go Fast LTE plan options. Each plan offers unlimited wireless residential internet and are priced to suit your budget and required data speed. Stop by any one of our locations and speak with one of our representatives. And get online with Go Fast LTE, the BVI's preferred choice for reliability, speed, and affordability. CCT Life Unlimited.